Disney World a rip-off? Now I know what you're going to say. No, Planet Mark, it's worth it. But has it always been like this? What were the tickets like back in 1971? What's the reason for all these price hikes? And is it ever going to stop? All of these answers and so many more in today's Money Hungry video. Make sure you subscribe to Planet Mark and hit that bell notification to be told of the next great upload. But today, yes, we are looking at Disney World tickets through the ages, and we're going to be adjusting them for inflation. So not back how it was back then, how much you would pay now. So when Disney World first opened, they only had the Magic Kingdom around Seven Seas Lagoon and the surrounding hotels. And things were a lot different back then as well in terms of tickets. You didn't actually pay for a ticket at all to get in, you only paid for the rides that you're going to go on. So a 7-ride booklet would cost you $4.75, which comes to about 67 cents per ride. Adjusted for inflation though, in today's prices, it would be $27 for the 7 booklet. But you could also buy an 8-ride booklet for $5.40, which in today's prices, adjusted for inflation, is just over $32. So let's take a look at 10 years later. So by 1981, Disney had expanded with the opening of the MGM Studios, Typhoon Lagoon, and the Disney Village, which will soon be known as Downtown Disney, and then today as Disney Springs. Obviously not boasting as many shops they had today, but still, that's why it's only a village. So by this point, Disney had got rid of the whole ride booklet, and they are doing what they do now is the one-day ticket. So a one-day ticket back in 1981 for all of those theme parks and amenities would cost you $13.25, which adjusted for inflation is $27.43, which is actually in fact cheaper adjusted for inflation than it was a decade ago for the 8-ride ticket and the 7. So by today's standards, Disney had actually made their ticket prices cheaper. And by the end of the decade, so 1989, the prices had increased again to $29. So by today's standards, it's $47. So it's still the third of the cost of a ticket today. So next we go on to what's known as the decade of Disney, which is coincidentally the decade that I was born. I was the Disney decade, which probably explains a lot. So by the mid-90s, 500 million guests had visited Disney World, and they had the last of their big expansions. So when they opened Blizzard Beach, the Disney Institute, and Animal Kingdom Park, as well as the additions of the cruise lines and golf courses. So in 1991, a one-day ticket would cost you $38. Adjusted for inflation, that's $48.80. And in 1999, for a one-day ticket, you would pay $44, or adjusted for inflation, that's $58.50. Next, Disney opens up the new millennium with a whole year of celebrations and events. And rolling over into 2001, we had Walt Disney's 100th birthday, which is pretty impressive. A man could achieve so much and really change the world in only 100 years. Well, less than 100 years, but maybe 100 if his head's still in that freezer. In 2001, you would pay $48, or adjusted for inflation, that's $59. And this is where it really starts to jump up. In 2009, you would pay $79, which adjusted for inflation is $89.76. So why did it jump up so dramatically then? In 1981, it was $13. 1991, it was $33, and 2001, it was $48. So what has happened in the last 17 years? It's gone from a reasonable price of $48 to over $130 in only 17 years. But we kind of need to look at factors beyond Disney. We need to look at Disney's place in the world stage. Disney officially announced that the reason why they increased their prices is basically they want to try and scare off people. On coming on the busier days, they say they heighten the price on busier days so that less people would attend. and they lower the prices on less busy days so they could get more people in. Which doesn't make any sense because the majority of people buy their tickets way in advance. Especially with Disney's Fast Pass Plus, they now expect you to be booking your Fast Passes 60 days or 30 days in advance. So pretty much saying that no one's going to be buying any tickets at the doors. So I'm going to go out and say, no, that is not the reason why they've done that, or that's a very tiny, minute little reasoning behind it. So could it be any expansions? Well, no, because Disney hasn't actually expanded since the opening of the Animal Kingdom park. They've only really updated. They've not had to buy any new land, because first they've got loads of it, and they bought it 50 years ago dirt cheap. Emphasis on the dirt, or maybe I should say swamp cheap, because that's what it is. Also, you may be thinking, well, Planet Mark, maybe it's less people in the parks. No, attendance has actually gone up. So it can't be that. Lack of interest certainly isn't the reason. However, the biggest financial factor of the noughties was the recession, and that hit Disney hard. Basically, people were still attending their parks, however, they weren't spending as much money. It's only logical. I mean, more people have less money, so when they go, they're wanting to pay less or opt for cheaper days out. And no matter how much Disney charges for tickets, you will always be spending the majority of your money inside those gates. I mean, think about it, you've got food, you've got toys, you've got any kind of merchandise, any drinks, everything you pay for inside the parks, any table service restaurants, they all add up, and it's every single time it's always more expensive than the ticket. This affects the stocks and stakeholders too, who, although Disney is the happiest place in the world and the place where dreams come true, it's effectively, it is a business, and it's where these bigwigs make their millions. And even if Disney did make a profit, it's not always a good thing, as a slower increase in profit will cause stocks to decrease, and therefore they're not getting as much money. They're still getting money, but then these stakeholders aren't getting as much money. Let's break it down for a second. Let's simplify things. Let's just say that in 2015, Disney made a profit of $10 million. They probably didn't, they probably made more than that, but that's just a really simple figure for me to start off with. So $10 million in 2015, yeah, that's a profit, that's a good thing, you know, that's probably more money than the majority of us will ever earn in our lifetimes. But the next year, 2016, Disney made a profit of half that, of $5 million. So, is that a good? Sure, it's a good thing because it's still a profit. We'd all like to be making $5 million. However, the stocks don't see this. They see this as it going down. They're making less profit. They're still making profit, but they are making less of it. It's growing less. I mean, even if they did, let's just say, for example, in 2015, Disney made a $10 million profit. The next year, they made a $15 million profit. And the year after that, they made a $17 million profit. Yes, this is still increasing, but it's increasing less. It's increasing by 50% and then by 20%. It's all economic data and things like that. Effectively, they just need to be outperforming themselves every single year. And that's what people don't understand, because effectively if they make less money, then the stockholders and the stakeholders, they're getting less money. They're still getting money, but they're just not getting as much, which, who's that going to affect? It's going to affect you, the consumer. And Disney doesn't want to be making all these things, like they don't want to be spending less, so firing people or less expansions or anything like that. So the one thing that it's always going to go on is those ticket prices. Additional fees have been introduced, like parking for hotels. They've recently introduced you having to pay for that. It used to be free, it's not anymore, and that all comes down to this. It comes down to stocks, and it comes down to their amount of money increase that they're making every year. So which finally leads me on to the question of, is this ever going to end? Are these Disney hikes ever going to get less significant? The answer, unfortunately, is no. I mean, even dropping prices, they're not going to drop prices. Even if less people went, Disney aren't prepared to drop those prices because it would still mean less money for the stockholders. At the end of the day, they don't care if you have to pay more money. They don't care if you have to save up more money. They don't care if you have to start paying for parking spaces when you're at a hotel. As long as they get more money, then they don't care who they upset. And this isn't Disney doing it, this is Disney's bosses. Disney is effectively trying to save people's jobs and save the customer experience, but at the end of the day, they have bosses too. Like you and me, everyone has a boss, and theirs is the people which give them the money, the stockholders. But I want to know, is this going to stop you from going to Disney World? I want to know in the comment section below. But remember, before you do that, subscribe to Planet Mark and hit that bell notification to be told of the next great upload. Share this around because it's informative and it tells people answers. It gives people answers to questions which they're always asking. Why is it going up? Why is the prices? Well, this is the answers, guys. Remember to follow us on Twitter at PlanetMarkVlog or Facebook.com/PlanetMarkVlog. See you in the next one, guys. Bye.